So very nice to see you all here. Today, I decided not to invite a guest speaker and instead focus on a more practical question of how to deal with the weekly progress survey that is due tomorrow, which is block 1, as well as how to deal with the most common question that we receive at this time, which is, my team is stuck and we are making very little progress. What do we do about that? And so today we will devote all of the attention to answering those two questions. And I recommend that you pull out your computers, and obviously you are at computers since you're participating in this webinar. And we can try to resolve or try to write your section 1 or block 1 of your report together. So if you will be taking notes and if you will be participating, hopefully you will be able to sort of go home or finish this webinar with something that is ready to be submitted as your block 1. And so first I will review what is due this weekend. Then we will together try to look at some of the challenges and together try to answer the questions that fall into block 1 and do it together and see what the best format is. I will show you some examples from the last semester so you can use them as a guideline, as a template. And then in the end, we will look at what you can do as a team, what steps specifically you as a team member can take to kind of move your team beyond this initial phase of when you get to know each other or getting to know each other to when you're actually performing. So as you know, we have 3 blocks of questions in each challenge. Block 1, block 2, and block 3. And so for the next 3 weeks, you will be required to submit a draft of each of those blocks one by one. The first block deals with market. So you have to do 2 things for that block. You have to analyze your company against competition, and based on your analysis, choose the best, most promising market for your client. And then once you choose that market, you have to do a little description of that market. So it's relatively simple. It can be a relatively short challenge or short block, short section of the report. But it's very important that you do it right, because depending on how you answer these first few questions, the rest of the report will depend on it, so will be influenced by it. And so before I go any further, let me share my screen, and I will show you a few things here that hopefully you will find useful. So can you please confirm that you see my screen, geeksculture.org website? Can somebody put please in Q&A window that yes, I can see it, I can see the screen. Okay, nice. So first, as the first step, you might want to take a look at the reports that had been written in the previous semesters. So you might want to take a look at the best reports from the earlier rounds of Xculture. To access them, and I think I provided the link before, but if not, all you have to do is go to xculture.org and then go to winners. And for each of those blocks, for each of those semesters, you will be able to find not only the list of the best teams, but you will also find the collection of their best reports. And so, for example, if you look at 2018-2, so this is last semester, many of the same companies participated that semester. So you may even find reports for the same companies that you're working on now, prepared by the students last semester. Now, I'm sure you can do even better what they did, so you don't even have to, you should not copy, obviously, and you don't even have to borrow their ideas, but by looking at them, you can probably find some inspiration and some idea, get some idea what those look like. For example, let me open here a few just to give you an idea. For example, here is one from Team 43. They worked on Mary's Alpaca Poop, and that's a company that is again available this semester. And so this is what their report looked like. So they had a nice table of contents, and then they had a nice executive summary, the team list, and then they had block 1 somewhere here, market. So industry analysis, product description, strength and weaknesses analysis. So all of that is here. Let's take a look at another one. So for example, let's open the second one. Let's see what's in there. So this one is Vertical Journey. I don't think we have this company this semester, but again, that's what their report looked like. They had a nice title page, as you can see. They had a nice table of contents, and they had the section 1, block 1 report. And so that's where they talked about, what they're going to do. So let me open a couple more just to give you a sense of what these things look like. So here's another vertical journey. So let me see if I can find something that is, again, same as this semester. So let's get, for example, 463. So this one is Unicheck. That's, again, another company that is participating this semester. And so, again, as you see, they have a nice title page with nice graphics, a nice executive summary, 1 page or 2 pages, then table of contents, and then, again, block 1, introduction, and block 1 that we need for the report, just like we do this time. Now, another block or another thing that you would need this week to answer the questions is you would need to look at the challenge itself, right? Challenge instructions. And so let me do that for you. So you go to 2019.1 or 1B if you're at the university level. And you would look at the challenge instructions. And so let's take a look together at some of the challenge instructions to see what exactly you need to do for your companies. Now, in the Q&A, could you please tell me what companies we have represented here today? So the students who are here today, what are your client companies so that we can work on those specific companies to help you? So we have OGG, Believe, ICCM, Abovo. Okay, all right, well, let's do those one by one. Let's go, for example, with the last one first because it's the first one alphabetically. So when you go to Abovo, you will see that, as always, as everybody else, they have 3 blocks that they want you to work on. And as always, the first block asks for market analysis and selection of the market for your new client. So those of you who don't know, Abovo makes chocolate, and they are a Ghanaian company, so out of Ghana. So they make very interesting chocolate using local ingredients, cocoa beans from Ghana, and apparently they are as good or better than anything else. Somebody raised a hand and probably wants to ask about the website address for Abovo not working. Yes, I know for some reason for the last few days we could not access the website. we already contacted the company owner and we are trying to find out what's going on there. So it seems like some technical problem and hopefully it will be working soon very well. So anyway, let's try to resolve this challenge together. So you have a company from Ghana and they make chocolate. And so you need to select the best market for them. But you don't know what country where the demand for this product would be the highest. So let's try to do it together. And before we get into those answers, here is your first tip on how to get unstuck as a team. So if your team has not done much yet, here is what you need to do. You can literally copy my steps as we go. So go to Google Docs and create a new Google Docs file. So that's exactly what you would need to do. So I'm going to do it under my own name, so as if I were a team member. I would literally create a blank Google Docs file, and I would just start with creating a title page. And I can even, just maybe put like a sculpture logo here so it looks good, right? And let's put it in the center. Then would say team, let's say my team is 0, for example. I would maybe say the client company, client. So let's say in our case it's Abovo Confectionery, Ghana. And you can use nice graphics if you want. Then I would provide a list of my team members. And here that's where I would insert a table. And I would have, let's say 7 or 7 team members. And for each one, I will have some information. So I would have name, I would have contacts, I would have role. And so again, I would put it very nicely in the middle. And that's what I recommend you do, like literally today. And your team will be very impressed with you. If nobody has done anything else, they will appreciate that you do it. And so we'll have, for example, my name, Vastaras, and we'll put here the email address, admin@xculture.org, right? And let's say my team role is, I don't know, copy editor and coordinator. And then let's say, for example, my next team member is John Smith, and his email is john.smith@gmail.com. And so, for example, his role is block 1 researcher, and so on and so on, right? And then you move on to the next section. I would reserve a section here that I would call table of contents. But since we don't have any table of contents yet, I would kind of skip it for now. Then I would go to the next page and I would call it executive summary. And again, since we don't have any executive summary or report yet, we wouldn't have it. But that's where I have block one, right? Block one, market, okay? And so that's where you start. And so let's say we have the Abovo confectionery company as a client. So as we said, we have two questions, right? One, competition analysis, and two, market. So let's do it together. And I recommend, or I encourage you to provide your answers in the comments, and I will use them together. So let's first see who do you think the competitors of this company are. So when they do business, what are the companies that they would have to compete against? Can you give me a few ideas? Anyone? So whom they compete against? What are the companies that they are in competition with? Okay, yeah, very nice. So somebody says Cadbury, that's a British chocolate maker, and indeed they make chocolate. I'm not sure if that's so. Let's say competitors. And for now, we just provide a bullet list, so we will expand that in more detail over the weeks. Maybe you will write a little bit more about each of those competitors, and you will talk a little bit about what they do. Cadbury probably not the best competitor, because Cadbury, that's a big company that makes all kinds of confections. And they're kind of generic market, right? So they appeal to people who just look for cheap sugar, essentially, right? So Abovo probably want to present themselves as a more exclusive chocolate maker. So something exotic, something from Ghana, nobody sells it. So you probably want to look more at the competition that are more kind of smaller and more exclusive. Although, again, it's probably one of the competitors, but maybe you can find something, yeah. So you have Ferrero, Nestle. Again, this is probably a little bit more upscale, although again, still generally generic. You can probably buy them anywhere. So that's probably not a bad choice. Do you have anyone else? Yeah, Lindt, that's an interesting one. Yeah. And I would also recommend maybe Godiva. I don't know if they sell their products everywhere, but in the United States, that's kind of upper scale chocolate. You can kind of buy it almost everywhere, but at the same time, it's more expensive and more exclusive. So they present themselves as, you know, organic and blah, 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 all that stuff. So you have this stuff here. Toblerone, that's another one, again, Toblerone. So another big brand, although I believe Toblerone is a brand of Nestle. I think it's one of those, it's not self-standing. But in any case, all of these are competitors. And you might want to write a few things about each of those, like a couple of sentences. Very good. So now once you're done with this, let's do some what they call SWOT analysis. Anyone remembers what SWOT stands for? So what is S for? Can you type what S stands for? Anyone? So S stands for strength. Very good. How about the rest of the? So we have strength. What else? Weaknesses, right? Opportunities and threats. And as you remember, so some teams do it in a very nice way. So they analyze all of this. Do we have any reports? They analyze it. Let me just go to one of those recent that we opened. They would have a very nice table and, you know, kind of have like a nice, well, anyway, let me go back here. We will do it together with you. Where's my Google Docs? Right here. So we can do it as a bullet list. We can do it as a table, but let's do it one by one here as a bullet list. So when you had to compare your client, which is Abovo, to the competition, Cadbury, Ferrero, Lindt, Nestle, Godiva, and I think it's Godiva, Toblerone, what would you say are the strengths of this small Ghanaian company, Abovo, when you look at that? Yeah, opportunity threats, yeah. So yeah, very nice. So Rashi gives a very, very good point. Exotic flavors. Very good, Rashi. Exotic flavors. So they sell not your generic, just sugary chocolate. They sell something exotic, something special, something, you know, from a country that many people don't even know where it is on the map. Now, there is a very interesting question from the anonymous attendee. What if your client has no competition? What company are you talking about, anonymous attendee? Because there is one that I also don't know of any competition. Which one are you talking about? And sorry, I don't know your name. It shows up as anonymous attendee, but the person who said, what if your client has no competition? So what company do you have in mind? My daughter is in the school that participates in X-Culture. And so they chose the company called Laser Wall. And it's a company that has a very unique product. They put those kind of like displays in multi-apartment buildings. And it's a very interesting product, but I literally cannot think of any competition. So they literally kind of compete with paper bulletin boards. And so my daughter was asking me yesterday who would be the competition of this company. And obviously I know the company, I did the webinars with them, and I couldn't think of anyone. So I'm not sure if that's what the anonymous attendee wanted to do. But in your case, you would say the strength is that there is virtually no competition, right? So there may be threats that maybe some of the big companies like, I don't know, Google maybe or Facebook decide to enter that market. And so that would be a big threat. But if at this time there is no competition, that's a big strength, right? So maybe the weakness is that nobody knows this product. Yeah, ICCM, that's a very good one too. I don't even know who would be the competitors to ICCM. I know this company very well. I attended several of their webinar seminars. In fact, one exactly a year ago to this day. Facebook reminded me that we had the event last year. I don't know who the competitors would be. Probably consulting companies that do cross-cultural management consulting. Anyway, let's finish Abovo and then proceed with the rest of the report. So somebody says that I cannot hear you. Is this just one person or nobody can hear me? I hope it works because my microphone shows up as working. Anyway, what are other strengths of a company out of Ghana that makes chocolate compared to all these other players? Can you think of anything else except for exotic flavors? Any other strengths and weaknesses? Okay, well, let's move on to weaknesses, and then you will tell me what the strengths are once you, or if you can think of more. What would be the weaknesses of a company like this? What would you put here? So what are the weaknesses of Abovo? Very good. Rashi again, yeah. Small, and because of this, costlier, right? So they cannot save money on what we call economies of scale, right? When Ferrero makes thousands of tons of chocolate every day, they can keep the cost per unit very low. Whereas when you have a small company from Ghana, obviously it will be relatively expensive. Anything else? Maybe transportation cost, right? Transportation cost may be a problem because they are in Ghana and they probably will be selling in a different country. You know, by definition, they want to move somewhere else. And I assume the transportation cost will be substantial. Flavors are not that exotic. Interesting, so they're trying to present themselves as exotic, but you're right. When you look at maybe not sort of not invested or not known yet for exotic flavors, right? And maybe some of those flavors are not that exotic at all. Yeah, so not very well known. So yeah, very well. Somebody said that's a very good one. In fact, I would probably put that as number one. Unknown, right? Or not known in the target market. Whichever market you choose, they probably will not be as known as or as recognizable as some of those brands. And so nobody would probably know. Very good. So again, you can extend this list further, but yes, those are some of the examples. Well, opportunities and threats. I'm not sure how much you should look into this for this specific report. You might want to talk about opportunities. So what would be the opportunities here? Anyone can think of something? Let's give at least one just to give you an example of what that might be. Again, you probably don't need it terribly for this report. Strength and weaknesses is probably enough. But for opportunities, I don't know, untapped market, maybe. So meaning that there is not that much exotic chocolate from exotic countries, right? So that's an opportunity. People do demand something interesting, something, you know, that they can consume as an experience as opposed to just sugar, right? And so that's an opportunity, right? Also maybe demand for exotic goods increasing. And in some countries, people really, really love this kind of exotic stuff. What would be the threat? Anyone? Large customer base, yeah, large customer base, that would be, I guess, probably the opportunity, you're right. If it's a large, you know, yeah, in fact, that's a very good one, Rashi, because everybody likes chocolate, right? So you have literally like 8 billion people on this planet who are potentially your customers. So large customer base. So we should give Rashi a medal today. Very good answers. Expanding, yeah, Emily, you're right. So it's an expanding company, yeah. Handmade chocolate, I guess we could call it a strength, you know, handmade. And it's not entirely handmade, but it's sort of, you know, like that. Yeah. Very good. Very good. What are the threats? Give me one or two threats and we will move on to the next question. Emily, yeah, I think, handmade, I would even put it in strength because people sort of like that, right? So I'm not sure how much an opportunity handmade stuff is, but it's a strength, because when you look at those generic chocolates, I mean, we know that they're made by machines, heartless, soulless machines. Whereas here you sort of have something that is more craft rather than just, a chunk of sugar. What would be the threats? Well, I would put here just to give you an example, maybe certification requirements. Many countries have strict laws about food imports, and so it may be a little bit difficult to get local competition, right? They don't have to transport their products, and so they may be a little bit more, patriotic sentiment. In some countries, especially in this political climate, many people want to buy local. They think they help the economy when they buy local. So by being a foreign company, I guess to some extent, it's an opportunity. Some people like imports. They believe that made in somewhere else is always better. But some people also believe that, buying local is patriotic. And so to some extent, that may be a threat too. And Emily, you're correct. Other chocolate companies can be a threat. Now, when it comes to market, and so if you submit this section for this question 1 for this week, that would be very, very good. You don't really need to do more. In the coming weeks, all you have to do, just expand all of those. So maybe provide like a sentence or 2 explanation of each of those competitors, who they are. Maybe explain in a sentence or 2 what these statements mean, like what exactly is exotic flavor and why it's a strength, and so things like that. And then let's move on to the market. So if we know that's the competition and we know what the strengths and weaknesses are, what kind of market would you move into where you would be successful? So what characteristics that market should have in order for you to be successful there? Can you give me some examples? I'll give you some examples. So I would call it market selection criteria. And so give me a few criteria, a few characteristics that need to be satisfied to ensure that your product will be successful in that market. For example, I would give you a few examples here. Let's say income level high. So you probably don't want to go to a country that is very poor and is not able to pay much for more exotic, more expensive chocolate, right? You probably want to expand into a country that has a lot of people who are relatively rich, affluent. It doesn't have to be rich, but you want people who can pay for chocolate more than $1 for a bar, because with the transportation and certification and all of that, you probably want to sell it for more money. So for example, neighboring countries, maybe like Congo, for example, or I don't know, Sierra Leone, I don't think there will be much demand for exotic chocolate there because they're not going through the best times now. And so income level is relatively low and people will not be able to pay much for your chocolate. So you want to go to something else. Here, very good example, Switzerland or America, but let's get to that in a minute. Let's first go through the list of criteria. And then once we know what we're looking for, we'll think what countries meet those criteria. So Emily, can you explain price range? So what would that mean? Is that also related to income level, or you mean something else? Russia again is on fire. Yeah, less certification. Very good. So let's call it imports welcome, right? Or easy importing rules, right? So that means few barriers or few restrictions on imports, such as no or easy certification requirements. Maybe what else? Like no import tariffs and things like that, right? So, okay, and I think I should have put 1 R, 2 Fs, right? Yeah, my mistake. What else? So what else needs to be there? How much to pay for? Let's put it this way. For example, used to paying much for chocolate, right? So in some countries, chocolate is, historically expensive. Yeah. What else? I would also put like transportation, easy transportation delivery, right? So you probably don't want to go to a country that is far, far away and transportation costs will be huge. Like, I don't know, Australia maybe, or maybe, I don't know, like Russia or Japan for that matter. It may be very costly to go that far. You probably want to go a little closer. So maybe like Europe, or maybe if you go just across the Atlantic to the United States, so that might be a little bit easier. Any other criteria? So easy transportation, maybe I would also put, I don't know, chocolate culture. Like, for example, again, in some cultures or countries, chocolate is a very popular product, and in some a little bit less so. Like, for example, Japan has their own very strange chocolate culture. They, have those very interesting flavors, like, like bacon flavored candy and, like very, very strange things. So competing in that market probably would be very difficult because it's not a typical chocolate market. But when you go to, for example, Europe or the United States, so those countries, they eat a lot of chocolates. They have this, tradition of eating chocolates, especially like, Christmas and Valentine's Day. So probably you want that. Now, potential markets. So when it comes to these criteria, so what countries, can you think of countries that satisfy these criteria? Relatively rich, oh, by the way, probably we want to put also large size, right? So if you want to enter the country and if you're willing to go through the hassle of certification and figuring out your logistics and delivery and packaging and advertisement, you probably want to go into a country that is relatively large so that all that investment works for a large market. Because if you go to a very, very small country, like Luxembourg, it's rich, it likes chocolate, but it has like, 500,000 people, probably even less than that, like 200,000 people. So all of that advertisement will probably be not very well spent because, you can't really sell that much when you have so few people. So you probably want to go into a larger market, at least initially, right? So what would be the good examples of those countries? So, all right, well, let's take a look here. So Shia before that said that it would be USA. So it has high income level. It has very easy import and rules. It may change now, but it seems like the trade war is mainly with China and Mexico, but it looks like there are no restrictions so far or no intent to restrict trade with African countries. They are paying a lot for chocolate. They do have demand for exotic chocolates, easy transportation, relatively. United States has some of the biggest ports like New York, like Savannah, like Miami. So very easy shipping by sea, inexpensive. Chocolate culture for sure, and it's a very large market. Shia also said Swiss chocolate. This one would be trickier. Switzerland is a relatively small country, and the local competition, oh, by the way, we might want to put here also no strong local competition, right? Switzerland obviously is one of the biggest manufacturers or makers of chocolate, and so it would be extremely hard to compete against all those local Nestle and all those other Swiss companies. So Switzerland, I would put here question mark because it would be hard. Now, Russia is saying United Arab Emirates. That's an interesting one. It's a very rich country. It's relatively close. They have a very, very stimulating import climate. So in fact, that's one of the biggest hubs for moving products just about around the world. So I've been to UAE last year. It's been 2 years now, last year. And so we had a tour of the ports that they have. Like it's whole cities, so they move so much stuff from Asia to Europe to America. So definitely importing to UAE would be relatively easy. So Dubai being one of them, yes. In Dubai, I mean that's like the biggest logistics hub, if not of the world, then definitely of the Middle East. So that's a very good example. Emily says Europe in general. That's a very good one, Emily. I like that because technically Europe is one single market, right? So once you import into one country, you can easily move the product without any additional certification or import tariffs across the entire region. The only trick, Emily, with Europe is that it uses different languages in different countries. And so your advertisement may have to be adjusted for each of those, at least language-wise, right? Because in France, you would have to use French to advertise, Italy, Italian, Germany, German, so it may be a little bit tricky. And by the way, here, since it's a small company and it would be very hard for the company to adjust, I might even put here uses English as the working language. And the reason for that is Ghana also uses English as the official language, and it's a small company, so for them it would be very difficult to adjust to different languages. So initially, probably it would be easier to work with a country that uses English so that less translation needs to be done, easier to communicate with the distributors, because again, like Spain, Portugal, Italy, France, those countries, while meeting all the other criteria, language may be an impediment, it may be a little bit difficult to work with that. So from that perspective, it might be, a little trickier. UAE should be fine. Everybody speaks English there, at least in the business world. So they're very open to collaboration and trade. So even though Arabic obviously is the official language, but my impression was that everyone in business is fluent in English. So communicating with the partners should not be a problem at all. In fact, they even in the stores, like somebody mentioned Dubai, you literally can pay with American dollars in the stores. I was very surprised, but it looked like New York to me. I mean, only much hotter. Emily suggests Australia. That's a very good, Australia. That's a very good example. So yeah, these are all good examples. Maybe Canada. Somebody also mentioned earlier South Africa. It's relatively close. It's relatively rich compared to other African countries. So I suppose why not? Now, your choice now will be to select, or your decision now will be to select one that is the best market for these criteria. So which one has, let's say, the highest income level, the easiest import rules, used to paying much for chocolate, relatively easy access by sea or by rail, has a chocolate culture, relatively large, has no strong local competition, uses English. So which one of these would be the best example? Somebody said Australia, yeah. Australia might be, yeah. So I'm not going to make that choice for you, so I'll leave it up to you, but, take a look at that. And so while at the first glance it may look like, for example, the United States is the biggest, the richest and all that stuff, but at the same time, I don't know, it may also have more competition. The United States is a very, very developed market economy, and you have just about any product you can think here. And so it would be very hard to go through, break through that clutter. So I would not be surprised, for example, if another country were equally good or maybe even better. So for example, maybe South Africa being a little bit easier, in terms of access, maybe a little bit less competition. So I don't know. I'll leave the choice to you, but all you have to do then as the final step, our market choice, just name one country. And I'll put here for now question mark. I'll leave it up to your team to decide, but that's what you do. And if you really, really want to impress the client and the professors, you can also include here market description. And so what you can do here is you can provide information such as, description of the economy, how they're doing, income level, economy size, trajectory, are they growing, are they going down? You can say a little bit about trade regulations. So you might want to go online and see, what kind of requirements they have for imports of food, for example. You may talk a little bit about maybe culture and traditions, such as, maybe say when they buy chocolate in their, largest volumes, would it be like for the Valentine's Day? Would it be for something else? Or maybe just every day? You might want to say a few things about competition in this specific country. So you might want to talk a little bit about which brands are most represented in that country and, how they differentiate themselves. So you can do some competition analysis specifically for this market. You might want to also say a little bit about what else would be here. I'm not sure if you want to talk much about politics, but maybe something about language, right? So if it's English, you might want to say that they use English as the main language. So things like that. So if you describe the market, the client will know a little bit more as to where they're getting into, sort of what kind of country they will be operating in. So that's basically all you have to do for this block one for this company. So more or less done. And that's, if you submit just this for this week, it would be perfectly fine. So you don't really need to do much else because, that's your draft for block one. So you will spend the rest of the semester trying to expand each of these points, maybe explain a little bit more, maybe, add a little more ideas if needed. But overall, that's all you need to do for block one. So obviously it will take some research, to do this. Or maybe, what you also want to say here, like main retailers of food in general and chocolate in particular, right? So, for example, who would be the right, distributors for this type of product? But that's basically it. Now, let's do one more company. So, which one you want to do? Tell me what other companies you work on. So, we had OGG. What else did we have there? Let's select one that is a little different. So those who are still here, so Letterecita. All right, well, let's do Plantral Letterecita. Okay, let's do the same thing. Oh, by the way, one more thing that you need to do. So once you are done with this report, here is how you impress your team. You go here, you name the file. Let's name the file. Just a second. Let's name it properly. So we will go and name the file. We will call it Team Zero Ab Ovo Confectionery X-Culture Report. Something like that, right? So you want to give it a nice name. And here is very important. So this is what you need to do. Then you click Share. And then you can either type the names of your team members or you can get the reusable link. So this link here. And make sure that you select here, everybody can edit, right? So that your team members can edit. You take this file, then you go to your email and you type an email to your team that looks something like this. You say, Block 1 ideas. And you say something like this. Hey, Team Zero. I noticed we were making little progress this week. Increase of you. So I took the liberty to create a shared docs, Google Docs file. Here is the link. I have already put down my own ideas for block 1. Can you please take a look and see if you want to add anything or add or change anything, right? Feel free, or let's everyone add something here and I will be happy to submit it on behalf of the team, right? And so everybody in your team will love you. So everybody starts sort of, sitting and waiting for something to happen. They don't know what to do. And so they don't know how to proceed. And here you send them the link. They click on the link and they see a wonderful, almost ready to submit, block 1 draft. So they see that you already have like a title page, obviously it still needs some graphics. You already have like a draft of the report and you have almost all of the answers for block 1. That's so great. And then somebody is actually, editing it with me. And maybe they will give you a few more ideas. Maybe somebody will add something else here. Maybe United Kingdom, right? United Kingdom, we didn't think about that one. So it's relatively close, right? And it's relatively rich and all that. And so maybe somebody will say, in addition, maybe one of the opportunities in this, and maybe one of the threats is this. And then all you will do when the time comes to submit your report, so let me see if I can find my own report. So do I have a reminder? Because I put myself as a student. Yeah. Oops, that's not the one. Where's my admin reminders? So control home. Where's that admin thing? Oh, come on, I should have been prepared. Admin. My apology. Let me find like this, due Sunday. So that's how I'll find it. Yeah. All right, here is my weekly progress report. So you click on your link. It takes you to the survey. And it seems like I already started working on that, so I'll go a little bit back. So yeah, I was just testing if it works. So I go back to the original question. I would say that I'm working at Abovo Confectionery. I would say that I will be submitting the reports, and then I will go back to my block 1. I will highlight it, right? Copy the whole thing. I would create a Word file. In the Word file, I will paste my work. I will save it as, let's call it Team 0 Block 1 Ab Ovo, right? Save it. Maybe even save it as PDF so that nothing gets messed up, especially if you have some graphics. Go back to my survey. Open that file and just drop it right here. Boom. And so I'm done with block 1. Then I have a few questions about the team, all those other things, and I'm done for this week. All right? Very easy. Your team will love you. As I said, most people on your team are very, very interested in making progress. Most people in your team are very, very interested in, doing something. But often nobody really knows how to approach it. And so people are not doing much, not because they're lazy or not because they're irresponsible, but because they are, but because by the way, am I recording the meeting? Anyway, but because they don't really know how to approach it. And so when you make that first step, they will be so happy, and they will really, really appreciate that you took that step. And once you give them that template, once you give them that Google Docs file, or you can do that same thing in, for example, Dropbox using a real Word file, they will be like, oh, aha, finally, somebody. They will love you, and they will start typing some comments and some, suggestions. And before you know it, you have almost already report. All right, let's do one more. So Hiplantron, right? So somebody said Hiplantron. So let's put here Hiplantron, which is Colombia, right? You can, again, and not client, right? So you put your team number, all that stuff. So, but let's do the same thing. So can anybody remind me what Hiplantron does? So what kind of product they are making? Anyone remembers? La Teresita. So what is La Teresita? What is that product? Anyone remembers? Yes, it's tea. So they make tea. So who are the competitors? Who are the competitors of this company? So obviously it would be Lipton. They talked about that. In fact, for Hiplantron, what's nice, they actually talk about competition directly in the webinar. So they name a few companies that make also tea. So they say, big companies like Lipton, so they have like 90% of the market, but they have all kinds of local. Yeah, very nice. Liz has here Hindu, so local tea by Bitako, Hindu, and so on. So very good. You're right. Runa, so very nice. Maliha has, okay, very good. So when it comes to SWOT, so what would be the strength of this company? Can you give me a few examples? What would be strength of a company out of Colombia that makes tea? They actually do have exotic flavors, right? They're sort of handmade, not exactly handmade, but again, a little bit more kind of process, yeah. Organic production, very good, Mariam. Yeah, so they specifically organic production. So they pride themselves in making, using the best organic materials, all of that stuff. What would be the weaknesses? What would be the weaknesses of this company? I think, again, we can say that they are not very known in the target market, right? They are relatively small because of that. They're costlier. Transportation would be very, yeah. I'm not sure if this would apply to them, but some of these weaknesses would be very similar, right? So what else do you have here? Huge competition, Rashi, very good. Yeah, you're right, huge competition. I guess that would be more of a threat, right? Because we have so many tea producers. So competition, so very good. They are small, you're right, unknown, not globally known. So all of those are very, very good, examples. Opportunities, again, new market, demand for exotic goods, Colombian tea, probably a little bit less known, so people might want to try it, right? Large consumer base, again, tea is a very popular drink in many countries, so everybody drinks it. So I suppose it's a very, very large customer base. What are the threats? I would be not surprised if it's the same thing. Yeah, luxurious product, luxurious, you're right. Threats, again, competition, probably certification requirements, probably local competition, maybe, again, patriotic sentiment, especially, when you talk about Colombia, many people don't know much about it. Some people still think that Colombia, it's all about, drug lords and, and war. Not true at all for at least 10 years, if not more. But again, some people may think so, but potentially that might be a threat. So again, what kind of market criteria, what kind of market, characteristics are necessary for this product to be successful? Again, let's see what we have here and if any of these apply to Hiplantron. Income level high, probably so, because again, you want to sell a little bit more expensive tea. Easy importing rules, again, probably so. Used to paying much for tea, probably so. In this case, not chocolate. Easy transportation, very much so. Tea culture, that's a very, very important one, right? So in some cultures, people don't drink tea, people drink primarily coffee, for example. So for example, in the United States, it seems like coffee is a much more popular drink than tea. But in the United Kingdom, on the other hand, tea is, it's a tea culture. People drink tea. Japan has tea and China has tea, but I don't think they would be drinking Colombian tea. So they have their own teas and they believe that those are the best teas. So it would be a little bit difficult to probably break into that market. But the United Kingdom, some European countries, obviously tea, they drink that a lot. Large size probably still matters. No strong competition. This one's tricky. Like if you look at the United Kingdom, they do have a very strong tea culture, but they've been drinking tea for like 500 years. So they probably have every possible tea ever. And so it would be very, very difficult to become a major player in that market. Yeah, tea drinking population, very good. Yeah. People who would believe in so when we go to opportunities, you said, benefits of moringa tea, very well. Not very known, so it's a threat. Maliha says, Plantra makes this moringa tea. So it's very popular in Latin America, but nobody really knows much about it outside the country or outside the region. And so on the one hand, it's a threat because nobody really knows much about it. On the other hand, it's an opportunity. So you have this wonderful exotic product, presumably with very, huge benefits. And so I guess if you can communicate them, it would be a big benefit, right? So all of those. So what countries would fit into this category? Well, the United States, probably so. Again, not much of a tea drinkers, but at the same time, it's a big country and there are enough people here. Switzerland, probably not so much. Middle East, they do drink tea, right? So they drink tea, they have their own kind of style of tea, but they probably would be open to the idea of Colombian tea. So I think might be worthwhile, right? India, very good. Again, India is a tricky one. India, Pakistan, definitely tea cultures, definitely big. Growing income level, probably will be willing to pay more and more. So definitely very good choice. My only concern is it seems like India and Pakistan, they have their own sort of tea culture. They add some milk in it. Like the way they drink tea is a little different than how tea is drunk in Latin America. And so I'm not sure, I don't know much about those cultures to determine if they would be open to the idea of drinking Colombian tea. So those of you who are in India, in Pakistan, maybe you should do a little research and see if people would be interested and open to that idea. If they would be, obviously you have like almost a billion people in India and many hundred of millions in Pakistan. So you have a very, very, large market and everybody is addicted to tea. So if they are open to the exotic Colombian tea, it may be a perfect market. So Lise here says they should not enter a new market because they have not established certain level of international presence. That's a good point. So, and maybe you should say, Lise, that they should focus more on Colombian market or maybe some neighboring countries. Very possible. Again, you do that analysis. It's not my job to tell you what to do, but if you feel that, if you've done your research and based on your research, you believe that they should not at this time expand, just expand, explain that. So that potentially could be a good answer. So very good, don't be afraid to recommend something that is different from what the company wanted from the beginning. So, and yeah, when it comes to the countries, so we have somebody who says Brazil, Chile, London, I assume that's the United Kingdom, right? Ireland. All of these are very, very good examples. So I'm not going to type them up here, but yes, you have very, very good arguments here. And yes, so Lee's tip is asking, can I just make suggestions for how they can improve their position in Colombia? Absolutely you can. Absolutely you can. Ultimately, even though the companies gave you a list of questions to answer and sort of the direction in which you should be thinking, ultimately all they want is to make money, right? And if you see some ways they can make money kind of outside the box that they put you in, tell them. In fact, Lise, I'll tell you a story. Our very, very first client was Mercedes-Benz, right? A company that makes cars and bus and trucks. And so they specifically wanted our students to help them with marketing for their buses and trucks that they were trying to sell in Africa. And so the teams were thinking about, the best marketing strategies and all that stuff. But then one team actually said, forget about marketing, you have other opportunities. And so what they did was they had an idea for like a platform for the truck drivers who drive Mercedes cars, almost like Facebook for Mercedes-Benz truck drivers. And so that platform would take, information from the computers of the trucks, would connect the drivers and would sort of become almost like a platform where they can share information, where they can get advice, where they can get tips, where they can communicate. And so Mercedes loved it so much, they said, it's not exactly what we asked. In fact, it's very different from what we asked for. But we love the idea. Actually, we love the idea very much. And that team won the competition. So they said, okay, even though it's not what we asked, but we love it so much, you win. So we love it. So in your case, Liz, same thing. If you see something that may be different from what the company wanted, but that, this is something the company can make money on, go for it. Yeah. All right. So we have a few more countries recommended for Hiplantro, like Sudan. Sudan is tricky. I mean, it's going now through very, very rough times, especially South Sudan, one of the parts of the former country, Sudan. And so I'm not sure how much they would be paying or able to pay for the product like this. Plus, it's very, very turbulent. So getting into that market may pose certain risks. But at the same time, because it's so turbulent, Ahmed, it's possible there is no competition. And, maybe that's a good market. Maybe, once you're there, nobody else, dares to go there. When you do, you may be the only player. So Ahmed, you may be right. I don't know. I don't know much about Sudan, but that's a very good point. Miriam says Turkey. Same thing. I mean, it's a very, very tea-oriented. Well, I guess more coffee, right? So Turkish coffee is more known. But they obviously drink tea as well. So again, all of those are very good examples. Remember, we don't really have the right and wrong answers here. So it's not really that, you can give or you need to find the correct answers. Nobody really knows. And so that's why we need you. We need your advice. We need your ideas so that, the company can use them to decide where they want to move. And so you recommend what you think is right based on your research, and we'll see what the company does. And so, yeah, and then once you decide on the country, Sudan, Turkey, Australia, whatever else you recommended, again, maybe describe it a little bit. Spend some time to describe the economy and trade regulations and all of that stuff so that your client sort of knows what they're getting into. But equally importantly, if not more importantly, the clients, for yourself, you need to know that market, because next block will be marketing. And again, you want to know the culture of that country. You want to know the economy. So you want to know what you will be sort of appealing to, what kind of people you're working with, because your marketing campaign has to be specific for that market. And so obviously, you need to do that research for yourself in order to be able to answer those questions. Another thing that I would recommend you do at this stage as well is market survey. It would be very, very beneficial. Extremely beneficial to conduct some data collection. And you can talk to potential customers. You can talk to potential distributors. For example, the two companies we did today, let's say Abolvo and Hiplantro, tea and chocolate. Talk to 5 of your friends. Ask them questions like, hey, would you be interested in buying Ghanaian chocolate or Colombian tea? Why or why not? How do you buy your tea or chocolate now? How do you make those choices? How much do you pay? Would you be willing to pay more? Do you think the prices are already too high? If a Ghanaian company was selling chocolate here, what would be your kind of reasons for buying or not buying it? Why would you be interested in buying it? Or maybe why would you be afraid of buying it? Maybe go to a local distribution center or store and say, if you want to talk to them, ask if you can talk to the manager and have the interview with them. So how do you select your products? How do you decide what kind of tea or chocolate you sell? What is your decision-making process? What are the important things for you? Have you ever heard about Colombian tea or Ghanaian chocolate? If there was a company here that wanted to sell to you, would you be willing to buy their product? Would you want to try it? If I connected you with that company, would you be interested in maybe buying the first shipment and just seeing if it works? How much would you be willing to pay? So when you ask all of those questions, it will give you a very good idea as to what you're dealing with. Maybe nobody is interested in that product in this country. Maybe they are afraid. Maybe the answers you will get from all 5 or 10 people you talk to will say, Ghanaian tea or Ghanaian chocolate? No way, man. So in that case, maybe the market is not quite ready for that product. Or vice versa, they'll say, Ghanaian chocolate, I never thought about that. Yeah, I would like to try it. Sure, yeah. I would probably pay for it. So, or maybe you talk to the manager and they say, that's interesting. We never had anything like that. Can you tell me more? How much would it cost? Yeah, maybe let's try to do a shipment. So do that research. If each team member talks to 5 friends and maybe 1 or 2 stores, you will have a pretty good, information or data to work with. You will know what to look for in your advertisement because you know what your customers think, how they think about selecting those products. It will definitely make a very good impression on your client. Reports that have that sort of survey are always very much appreciated by the clients. It's definitely, presents you as a serious market researcher, as a serious consultant, and it's a good experience for you. That's something that will look very, very good on your resume as well. So I strongly recommend that you try to do that. And then don't forget that all of these companies, they are willing to pay you aftermarket commission if you bring them a contract. So in addition to giving them the ideas, if you at the end say, and by the way, we talked to this store chain or network, and they said they want to try your product, maybe, the first time, a small shipment, just to see if the customers would be paying for it. But here is the letter of intent. Here is the name of the person I spoke to. Here are the contacts. Why don't you talk? If you facilitate that transaction, they will literally pay you aftermarket commission. And I believe most of the companies offer, I think they offer like 15% of the first contract. So let's say they buy like a shipment, a container of that chocolate or tea. So they make some money on it, but they would be happy to share with you some of those proceeds. So definitely something to think about. Anyway, and Ahmed says that your father is from Sudan. Very nice. So yeah, talk to him. Ask him if, based on his knowledge of Sudan, would they buy Colombian tea? Would they be willing to pay more for it? Would they be, willing to, distribute it there, through the stores? So all of that is useful information. Anyway, I'm almost, oh, you like my haircut? Thank you so much. Yeah, my hair was too long. Anyway, we have a few more minutes, and I would like to give you an opportunity to ask questions. So if there is anything else that we didn't touch, that we didn't talk about today, but you wanted to discuss, it's now your opportunity. I have the next webinar in a few minutes, but we still have a few minutes. So any other comments, any other questions, let me know. And it seems like we don't have, Shia, you have a question? Let me move you so we can talk with you. I saw you yesterday. You could have asked me the question yesterday. Now, first things first, Shia. Do I pronounce your name correctly? Is it Shea, Shia? I never knew how to pronounce your name.
Shea.
Shea. Okay. My apology for not saying it right. I remember Sophia corrected me some time ago. She said you're not saying his name right, but I forgot which one was correct. So Shea. All right. What's your question?
Wait, hold on. Let me compose this in my brain. My thing is, at this point, can we change team? I mean, change companies?
Yes, you can change companies anytime. If you started working on one and then you either find it too difficult, or you have some better ideas for a different company, or maybe you watched a webinar and you found the presenters to be not very clear or supportive, but then you watched another webinar and you thought, oh, that's an interesting product. I didn't think about it. Yes, you can change them anytime.
Okay.
Which one are you working on now?
We're working on Op Ovo, but I think I'm going to do this. We're going to do this one, and then we're going to talk about to our team about if anybody has any other ideas. We were either looking at Dream School or X Culture Kids.
I wanted to say originally that Abovo is a very good company, but X-Culture Kids is a much better company, obviously. But yes, your choice. And if you wanted to change, obviously you can. I know that Sophia's team chose Laser Wall, and so this is a very difficult company. So they specialize in a product that is, I don't even know there is a word, like if there is a word for that product. So it's very innovative, very really, really cool, but also at the same time, very technologically difficult. And honestly, I think it may be too hard for a bunch of kids to work on a challenge like that. So from this perspective, I don't know. I mean, they seem to like it, so I'm fine with that. But if I were to select a client for a team of kids, I would probably go with something simpler like chocolate or tea. But anyway, all of those are good. Yep. Emily, what is your question?
I wanted to ask, what do we have to ask the shop ops on, like when we ask the manager on the survey?
Which questions you should be asking?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's up to you, but I would recommend that you ask things like that. First, you want to ask them how they make the decisions about, which products they sell. So you would, let's say, for example, you have the chocolate company as your client. So you would ask them, so do you sell chocolates? Who decides what products, what brands you sell? How do you decide which ones to sell? Is it the price? Is it the discount that they give you? Is it the specific country of origin? So how do you make that decision? So for example, you could say, I was walking through your store. I looked that you on the shelves, you had, I don't know, Nestle products. So why Nestle? Why do you think this is the best product for your store to sell? So you want to understand sort of the decision-making process. Then you would ask questions about your client. So for example, you can say, I'm participating in this project and my client is, let's say, for example, Abovo. It's a company from Ghana. They make chocolate. Have you ever heard about them? Would you be interested in trying that product? Why or why not? If he says no, probably not, you would ask, so why not? He will say, well, I've never heard about them, or it's too much hassle. Or maybe he will say, yes, I would like to, and here is why. And so all of that information, he will say, okay, because it's exotic, clients or customers may like it. So you will use that information then to put it in the report and say, I spoke to a manager of a store, and this is what he liked about your company. So this is something that you might want to put in those letters, for example, that you will send to them proposing, to try their product. And so, and then you can see where the discussion leads you. Like maybe he will start talking about pricing. So maybe he will have a lot of questions about whether or not he needs to pay upfront for the product, or maybe he would be allowed to get a shipment, try to sell it, and then if it sells, he will pay for the product. If it doesn't sell, he'll ship it back. Or maybe he will pay only after he sells it and has the money. So he may have questions for the company. Would you be willing to give us what they call open account, where you ship the product, but we pay for it afterwards? So who knows what kind of issues come up, but whatever comes up, it will inform you as to what the client needs to know, because chances are when they talk to another distributor, the same questions will come up again and again and again. So you just document what they tell you, you use that information to develop your proposal, you put those answers in your report so that the client knows what was going on in that discussion. And I think that's really all you need to do. And so it could be as easy as literally just walking into a local store and saying, hey, I'm working on this consulting project, and so they're selling a product that you might be interested in selling. I would like to interview your manager. What's good about that is that it's also a good experience for you because normally, kids or students don't really have many opportunities to talk to managers. I mean, like, what do you say? Why do you want to talk to them? Well, here you have a wonderful opportunity. So you have a good excuse. And so when you come to them, they will be happy to talk to you. Not often do they, see someone who wants to interview them, who wants to hear from them. So they'll probably like it very much. And at the same time, it's a good experience for you, something that may look, good on your resume. And especially for the older students, those that are in college, if they will be looking for jobs or summer internships, we've heard so many stories that students just walk into a store or distribution center and talk to the manager. And before they know it, the manager says, oh, you're so smart. You're asking the right questions. Are you interested in a job? Would you like to work for me maybe this summer? Or when do you graduate? Would you like to work for me after you graduate? Happens so many times. So that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. The worst thing that can happen, they'll just say, I don't have time for you. So big deal. You just go and, don't do anything. But if they start talking to you, as I said, it will be very, very educational.
Okay. I have one more question before I go off the screen. When we do decide to do a new project, because we're thinking of changing it, will we get like extra time to do that since we are so far in the surveys and tasks?
That's a very good question. So if you change your company, do you get more time? Probably no. And the reason for that is because we have, over 5,000 students. And so if we start making exceptions with respect to the deadlines, it would be very hard for us to manage. But it would be okay if maybe you submitted less in the next couple of weeks. Like, let's say, for example, you are done with block 1, and only then you decide to switch to a different company. And so you kind of have to go back, redo block 1, and now you don't have much time to do block 2. So it would be, I suppose, okay if your draft was not fully developed, if it's only like one paragraph and nothing else. So we will understand that you didn't really have the time to do it right, so you need a little time to catch up. So in that case, I suppose it would be fine. So either way, there would be no penalty, but I think your professor, teacher will understand and will not, be upset that you're a little behind. But the final deadline would still have to be the same, so we will not be able to give you an extra week or 2 to finish. So it may be that, for a few weeks you will be a little behind, but as long as you catch up and still finish by April 30th, I believe the deadline, it still should be fine. So if you wanted to change a company, it's okay. If that will make you to be a little late with some of the deadlines or not have much, for some of the deadlines, it's also okay. But you'll still have to have the final product ready by the end of the project as everybody else. So if you wanted to change a company this week, probably still not too late. Next week becomes a little tricky, but still possible. A week after, you probably will not have much time after that, so it's probably better just to stick with whatever you have because you just don't have much time to finish something else. Make sense? Okay, so Kennedy, you had a question. Kennedy, we don't have your sound. You may have to go to your microphone settings, lower left corner. And so there is like a microphone icon and there is like a little arrow pointing up. If you click on that arrow, I think it will be able to, you will be able to choose a different microphone, and that should allow you to, yeah. Is it working now? Still, I think we still don't hear you. Maybe type your question if you want, so this way I'll see it and I'll try to answer it that way. And meanwhile, let me see if we have any other questions. So Liz is asking, is the formatting important or not so much? Liz, this is a very good question. The formatting is sort of not important in a sense that it's more about the answers and not how they're presented. But if you're a client and you receive 200 reports, like this many, and you don't have much time to read each one of them and understand, what you will do is you will sort of kind of skip the reports that don't look neat and nice. And so we've done some research and we know that the visual appeal, like visual presentation, is extremely important. And it's almost to the point that it's almost unfair. So the reports that look nice often get much higher grades than the reports that look sloppy. And it makes no sense because often the sloppy reports contain more interesting ideas. But psychologically, people who are busy, people who get a lot of reports, who have a lot of work to do, they just, you know, if it looks sloppy, if it's not professionally formatted, if it contains a lot of typos and errors and different font sizes, and, you know, in many cases, people don't even read them. So technically, formatting is not critically important. Practically, it matters more than anything else. And nice kind of, you know, as they call it, eye candy, something that looks very nice, gives you right away a huge advantage. And at the same time, if it doesn't look nice, you can have the most brilliant ideas. There is a very good chance nobody will even read it. So from that perspective, formatting is extremely important. I don't think you can have a chance of winning this competition if your report looks poor, like if it looks, you know, unprofessional. Even if you have the best ideas, it may not even be read. So therefore, yeah. And then another person is asking, anonymous, I don't know the name, is it's important to have a team leader. Historically, about 1/3 of the teams have a formally elected leader. Another third of the teams have an informal leader, so someone who just became a leader but was not really appointed a leader, kind of naturally emerged as an informal leader. And then approximately 1/3 of the teams don't have a leader at all. And it seems like the teams that have a leader do better than those that don't. So it's nice to have a coordinator, somebody who will put together the initial draft, somebody who will tell everyone what to do, maybe send reminders, but you don't have to have one. So we've had teams that did very well without a leader. We had teams that had a leader and it didn't help much, so they still had conflicts and didn't know what to do. But I would recommend to try to select somebody who will do coordination. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person has to be a boss and will tell everyone what to do, but it would probably make sense to have somebody who does most of the coordination. So I recommend to have someone. Kennedy, is your microphone working now? No, huh, strange, yeah. Well, so if you type your question, I don't see some questions here from other people, but I mean, I don't see questions from you, but let's see. Anonymous NND is asking if a member of a team is not participating, but just send 1 or 2 messages, and we have a group of 7 or 8, 1 or 2 messages in 7 or 8 days. What do we do about that? It's a very good question, and it happens often. In fact, we looked at the data. Let me show you, so just so you know a little bit more about that. So here are some of the data that I probably should not be showing the students. It's something that goes to the professors, but I suppose why not? I can probably show you that message. So here is the message that I send to the professors every week, and it's a message that contains sort of review of all the statistics pertaining to the project. And so here are some of the information. So for example, on average, people give peer evaluations that are 4.2, last week at least. 4.2 out of 5, that's better than good, but not quite excellent, right? And so when we ask people how confident they are that they can finish the project on time, people say I'm 87% confident. When we ask how motivated they are to participate, it's 88% this week. It was 90% last week. So they're a little bit less motivated, a little bit less confident. They're still enjoying it very much, 88%, and they're a little, like as clear as they were last week. When you look at the peer evaluations distribution, as you can see, so 3 is okay, right? So you can see that like 95% of the people receive peer evaluations above okay, and about half of the students are above good. So everything's good. But at the same time, we have a few people, it's not many, but we have a few people who are kind of in the bad territory, which is 2, or even very bad, which is 1. And so when we look at the peer evaluations and warnings, again, I probably should not be showing you this file, but I guess why not? So here we have all whatever thousand of people who participated in the project this week. And when we look at peer evaluations, as you remember, 2.0 is the peer evaluation that kind of makes us very nervous. And when you get peer evaluations below 2, that's when we send you a warning. So let's see how many people this week received peer evaluations below 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this column by peer evaluations. And so let's see how many people received peer evaluations that are less than 2. So I'll do a conditional formatting, less than 2.1 or 2 point, right? So as you can see, we have 29 people total this week who didn't do well. Well, 29 people out of like 4,000, that's not many. But we still have a few who didn't do well at all. And if you consider 2 and 2.5 maybe even still a problem, then we have like 70, 80 people. And so those are the people who potentially don't participate well. We have 700 teams, and we have about 70 people who are not doing very well, maybe even a little bit more. That means that 1 in 10 teams has a team member who is not participating very well. So that means that we have about 70 teams where there is a problematic team member. And so the question is, what do you do with them? Well, first and foremost, you tell us about that, right? You give that person low peer evaluations so that we know that there is a problem. We will send that person a warning. We will send that person an invitation to maybe use coaching. So I will assign a coach to that person, and a coach will contact the person and see, what's going on. Are you lost? Are you sick? Maybe you need some help. Let me see how we can help you. So second, you keep sending emails to that person. Maybe the person was sick. Maybe the person was traveling. So obviously, maybe they're lost. So the more reminders you send to them, the more likely they are to respond to you. Try to be not very aggressive. Some people say, hey, you jerk, you're not doing anything, so that's not good. And so that may upset them and may discourage them from working with you. So you want to be nice. You could say, hey, John, I didn't hear from you for a while. Is everything okay? Do you need any help? We are trying to work on this block 1 questions, and we haven't really received anything from you. Do you know what's going on? Do you want maybe to connect on Skype so I can give you more information? So the people will be much more likely to respond to that. And likewise, if nothing else works, you can send an email to the coaches and say, there is a problem with John Smith, and, we need your help. So you send an email to coaching@xculture.org and you explain the situation. And so we will probably assign a coach. And as I said, they will do some investigation. They'll see what's going on and hopefully will help. What we will not do is we will not put you on a different team. Sometimes people say, oh, my team is bad. Can I get a better team? No, you can't, because first of all, the teams have been formed. We can't really, put you on a different team because, there are no teams that need or want a new team member. Second, the whole point of this project is so that you experience those challenges. So if we put you on a different team and then another team until everything goes well, you will not learn much. As I said, this project is not about having fun. It's not about, having a good team. It's about, having a real team, maybe with some problems, maybe with some people who are not really, active. So you can learn, experience, figure out how to deal with this. So when you graduate and have a real job and have that same situation, you say, oh, I know this happened to me before. This is what we'll do. So that's the whole point. Kennedy, let's try again. So let's see if it's going to work, if I can hear your question. And if it's not working, yeah, still no sound, unfortunately. Well, type your question. Why don't you type your question and I'll answer it. And we are way over time, so let's see if there are any other questions that I need to answer, and then maybe we'll go. Liz is asking, the final report needs to be neat, but do we need to have each of these drafts neat? Now, that's a good question, Liz. Yes. The final report needs to be nice. The weekly drafts, no, they don't have to be nice. If you are a university student and you have a professor, the professor will see your submission, but normally it is not evaluated. So which means that even if it's too little, or even if it's not neatly formatted, you will not get any penalty. For me, so I look at all those submissions, and we have several other professors and then 40 coaches who look at every submission. For us, we're using your submissions not so much to judge you, but to see how well you're doing. And if you have too little, or if it's extremely messy, we may reach out to you and see if we can help. So we will not tell you, oh, bad, you haven't done a good job, your formatting is poor. No. If it's really, really bad, what will happen is a coach may call you and say, hey, it seems like you guys are having trouble. Your submission looks very weak. Would you like me to help you? And again, only if you say, yes, I would like you to help me, they will say, okay, let's see what we can do. But as I said, it has absolutely, absolutely no effect on your evaluations, on your ability to win this competition. So it's only for us to see how you're doing so that we know if you need help, we can, provide it. But yes, it can be as messy and as bad as it gets at this stage. As long as the final product looks good, we are good. So you don't really need to do anything. So let me, somebody raised hand and I excluded someone, but I think it's okay. Yeah, Emily, sorry. I thought it was a raised hand, but instead I excluded you from the attendee list. But anyway, you did ask a question. And so do we have anyone? Now, Irina is asking if nobody on the team participates, do I submit the project myself? Irina, please remind me, you're on team number 7, right? So you are the girl who complained and kind of raised an alarm blew the whistle, as they say, that there was a problem on the team, right? You are that one. And if so, yes. So we assigned 2 coaches to your team. I think it was Karina and Bakhtash. And so my understanding is that they're trying to contact every team member and trying to see what's going on there. And based on what I hear from them, they say that all of the team members responded to them. So it seems like they are all interested in working on the project. They just don't really quite know what to do. So what we are going to do with your team is we are going to try to help you complete the project as a team. So they will definitely try to get those other people on track and make them active so that you can work as a team. So I truly appreciate that you, Irina, continue working very well on it. And so obviously at this time, you are the locomotive of that team. You are the leader of the team. You are the one who is doing something. But I guarantee you there will be at least a few more people on the team who will be helping you. As I said, based on the investigation they have done so far, the rest of the people are not lazy. They are not bad. They just didn't quite get the same guidance that they needed, or good guidance, and they're quite not sure what to do. So I think with your help and with the help of the coaches, they will work reasonably well. And so just give them a little bit more time. I'm sure they will do just fine. And if not, again, we'll see what we can do about it. So if there will be other teams that maybe have the same problem, maybe we'll take the better team members like you and put them in one team, although we usually try not to do that. But again, it's disappointing that you have some team members who are not participating. I almost guarantee you that it will get better. The first couple of weeks are always rough. And so let's see how things develop and then, see what we have to do about that once we have a little bit more information. Now, Samara is asking that she sent a question about a company, right, to admin. And then apparently didn't receive the answer yet. What happens, Samara, is that when we get a question about a company and we don't know the answer, we send those questions to the company. And in some cases, we get the answer almost right away. But in other cases, it may be a few days before we hear back from them. And the reason for that, obviously, is that the company owners are busy and sometimes it takes them time to answer. So if it's been too long, maybe send another reminder. So maybe Simona just simply forgot about you, or, or also what could happen if it's a question for the company, normally what happens is he adds them to the frequently asked questions. That when you go to the challenge, like you go to the resource page for the project, and where you see the challenges, there is always a link to what we call the frequently asked questions. And so once you ask a question, my assistant, Simona De Loca, he adds that question to that file. And so once the answer comes, he just adds it to the file. And so maybe he didn't share it with you, or forgot to share it with you, or forgot who asked the question. But most likely he did add that answer to that frequently asked questions file, and you should be able to see it there. So check it there. But if not, send maybe another reminder, because as I said, we have so much traffic. It's like literally like 300 emails every day. And I'm not kidding, it's literally 300. So it's definitely more than 100 every single day, and up to 300 on some days. And it just, sometimes too hard to keep track of everything, remember everything. So maybe something was just lost. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, so Kennedy, okay, so Kennedy is asking, if we decided not to do chocolate company, what other company would you recommend? Well, looking at your picture, so it seems like you are relatively young kids, right? So you're what, like 12, maybe 13, 14, right? So I would recommend that you go with the companies that have the product that is a little bit, easier to understand. So the key company, Hiplantro, seems to have a relatively simple product. I really like Mary's Poop. So they sell this exotic fertilizer. So it's an interesting product. It's a little, gross and funny, but at the same time, and I love the owner of the company, Mary. Mary is really, if you saw the webinar with her, she's really, really nice and very, very quick to respond. And by the way, one of the teams decided to visit her farm, so they will be going there next week. So this company is in Virginia here, Maryland, Virginia, so one state up from North Carolina. And so one team here in the United States, they have team members, so they decided to go visit the company, and they will do a live webinar from there, from the location. So you'll see the video of those, alpacas, llamas, all that stuff. So that's a very interesting company. As I said, strange product a little bit, but definitely something that you can have a lot of fun working with, and they respond right away. Unicorn Clean, again, always respond very quickly. They participated last semester, they participate this semester. The CEO is a very, very invested, sort of, involved man. Usually you ask a question, you get the answer by the end of the day. So that's a very good company. I like Unicheck. Again, the product there is something to do with education, and you all probably have heard about plagiarism. You know what the product is. You can talk to your teachers, you can talk to the principals of your schools, do they use any plagiarism detection software? How do they choose it? Who pays for it? Would they consider another one? Students are also clients, so they also can have a student subscription. Again, you can just talk to your friends and say, hey, would you like to have a subscription to a company like this? So I think that would be a relatively easy product to work on and easy to relate. Yeah, so all of those probably would be good. And not that others will be more, inappropriate or not suitable, but I think these will be a little bit more easy to understand. Xculture Kids potentially is an interesting one. Again, I don't want to promote it too much, but again, if you have some ideas for how we can make it better, I would be very, very interested. So we are still trying to build this program. And so any ideas, suggestions would be interesting. And I promise you, I will respond to your questions within a day or two. So definitely will be there for you. If you need me, you can just call me. So I'll definitely talk to you. And then Dream School, I guess this one is always popular among kids. And obviously you probably have some things that you like and don't like about your own school. And so here is your opportunity to present those ideas and maybe even see them implemented in some schools. All right, so let's stop here because we are way, way over time. Thank you so much all for attending. And so we will meet again next week. I think we will have a guest speaker next week and talk about some of the topics here, but hopefully this was useful, and hopefully you will be submitting good drafts of block 1 questions this weekend. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, have fun.